Welcome everyone to this live webinar, Economics in Pandemic Times. I want to start by apologizing all our attendees because we had several technical difficulties in my end, in Joel's end, in Walid's end, and we had to restart our connections, our Zoom several times. I guess this is normal. Lebanon electricity went down, even a lake blown up. Where I'm staying, the electricity in my apartment blew up, and I had to move to the house of the host where I'm staying. I am in his living room, so I need to really thank Mr. George for giving the chance to be here in his living room to host with my friends this webinar. So thank you for bearing with us, and we are starting 20 minutes late. Sorry for this. I want to thank you all the attendees. More than 130 people registered to attend this webinar, and we are happy that you are joining us from different places. I want to ask you, if you are so kind, here below the screen of the webinar, write as a comment from which country you are watching this webinar. We want to acknowledge your presence, your attendance, and we want to know from which countries you are attending. This is the third webinar in this series that we are doing this summer on the topics of the pandemics, the effects of the pandemics in different sectors, in different industries. And we have people from many countries attending the previous two webinars, from North America, from South America, from Europe, and from the Middle East, different countries. And we want to know from which countries you are watching, you are joining tonight. For those of you who paid to get a certificate, I want to remind you that you need to record your attendance by liking this webinar, by sharing this webinar, or by typing a comment in your webinar, so we can track that you were present with us tonight, and then we can send you by email your certificate as a PDF. It's my honor today to co-host from Middle East University this webinar. It's a very relevant and important topic, and we have a lineup of experts to lead us in the presentations tonight. This webinar is organized by Middle East University here from Samtieh, Beirut, in Lebanon, the Faculty of Business Administration, and is co-organized by three other entities: Jupiter Horizons Consultancy, JHC, Jihad may tell us more about this in a while. Also by Pfc, Professional Financial Consultancy, based in Qatar and in Lebanon. Mr. Walid may tell us more about this consultancy later. And also by MEU Business Club. And Sarkis Vartanian is today representing the Business Club. I want to also encourage each one of you, and I'm going to do it right now. You can actually start a watch party, so many more people can benefit from this webinar. So what you need to do is, in your Facebook page, you need to start a watch party right here, down here, and then you can retransmit the webinar in your Facebook wall, and we can reach more people and benefit more people with the advice that we will receive tonight in this webinar. So let me do this right now, and you can do it also from wherever you are. You can start a watch party, and you can let your friends know that this webinar is live streamed now, and they can also join. I want to introduce now my two co-hosts for tonight, and then they will introduce the two panelists. I want to introduce first Jihad El Hokayem. Jihad El Hokayem holds a Bachelor of Business Administration in Accounting and a Master's of Business Administration in Finance, both from Middle East University. She is currently pursuing a doctorate degree in Business Administration at Beirut Arab University. She is a business lecturer and has been for the past 9 years. She is also an academic advisor for finance students as well as serving as the Student Association sponsor at Middle East University. Joel is a Lebanese, married to Larry, of Armenian origins, and together have 3 children, James, Peter, and Caitlin. Welcome, Joel. How are you tonight?
Thank you, Dr. Carlos. I'm great.
Thank you for being with us tonight. Also, the second co-host is Sarkis Vartanian. Sarkis is a 23-year-old Lebanese Armenian student. He is studying accounting at Middle East University. He lives here in Beirut, Lebanon, where he is a full-time employee as he studies. His dream is to earn a high position at one of the big four, accounting firms. Welcome, Sarkis. How are you tonight?
I am good. Thank you for welcoming me.
All right. Thank you for being with us. I want to now ask Joel to introduce, please, Mr. Walid.
Good evening. Thank you, Dr. Carlos, for the kind words. I want to talk about Walid a little bit. First of all, Walid is a very, very dear friend from university times. We had very good times at Middle East University together with his brother and all our friends. Walid is a Lebanese Australian. He is born in Pfc, the land of Gibran Khalil Gibran, definitely. He is an alumnus of Middle East University, as I said. He earned his BA in business management in 2007. He also holds an MBA in international commerce in 2013 from SPU Nitra University in Slovakia. Mr. Jaja is specialized in feasibility studies, business plans, business valuations, restructuring, and corporate finance solutions. He's got more than 13 years of experience, 5 of which were in Qatar and the Gulf area, providing management and financial solutions to clients. Mr. Jaja is currently the general manager of Pfc International. He is the CEO of Sadria Engineering Middle East, and he's the general manager of TSA and Partners in Qatar. I'm quite certain that we will benefit from Mr. Jaja in a while, from his experience in economics and especially during this time. So Walid, the floor will be yours in a while, but I welcome you.
Thank you, Joel.
I'm really happy to have you and see you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so I want to introduce, I am honored actually to introduce Mr. Jihad El Hokayem, who is the Chief Financial Market Strategist at Jupiter Horizons Consultancy. He forecasted live on TV the crash of gold in 2013 and oil prices collapse in 2014. He was actually the first to publicly forecast the real estate crash and the current economic crisis in Lebanon. He is also the president of Rethinking Lebanon, which is an NGO that aims to empower Lebanese youth and guide them to reshape Lebanon and its economy. And it also aims to promote Lebanon's image on an international level, which is actually part of what we need right now to get financial support. Well, not to waste any more time, Mr. Jihad, I give you the time to present.
Thank you, first of all, for Middle East University for hosting this webinar, Dean Carlos, Dr. Joel, Sarkis, and as well the general manager of SPF, I guess. PFC, yes, Walid Jaja. So thank you for being with us. I would like to thank as well all the attendees. And sorry for being late on behalf of Middle East University, because I consider myself that I'm a family member of Middle East University. And actually it was unforeseen circumstances due to electricity problems in Lebanon. As you know, we are famous for that across the globe. So that we spent around $40 billion in order to have electricity for 2 or 3 hours a day. So I'm not gonna talk a lot about Jupiter Horizons Consultancy, but it is a corporation specialized in wealth management and financial markets. So today's session, I would like to be very brief, and I will talk just about 10 or 15 minutes, and then I'm gonna leave the floor for certain questions. Mainly, I'm going to go over 3 issues today. First of all, I'm going to go over the table that you have in front of you. Then I'm going to go over the latest 2 articles that I was co-author of 2 articles. One was entitled Leading by Misleading in the Hummus Economy, and another article that was published yesterday. It was Create Value or Lose Your Value. So I'm going to talk about these 2 articles and this table. I took pride in publishing these 2 articles with Joanna Abu Jawde. She's a very dear friend and a brilliant consultant. I guess, Sarkis, you can ask for her consultancy because she was a brilliant director in one of the Big 4. So since your aim is to join the Big 4 upon graduation. So yes, first of all, let me talk about the table that you see in front of you. When I forecasted live on TV the crash of oil in 2014, and the crash took place at the end of 2014, I was curious to know what's going to be the impact of this crash on the Lebanese economy. And then in 2016, I said that the real estate in Lebanon, real estate sector is going to crash totally. Unlike what everybody used to say, that real estate can never go down. And in 2017, I said why real estate is going to crash, and in case the central bank is going to keep on subsidizing the real estate sector, not only the real estate will crash by 2020, but the whole economy. And I said that we have to choose whether to subsidize the real estate sector. And I'm talking about real estate, I'm not talking about subsidizing buying houses for those who cannot afford buying houses, that we call in Lebanon scheme. So I was criticizing subsidizing the tycoons and the real estate developers, and subsidizing buying fancy apartments. So these people were subsidized at the expense of those who didn't have enough money to afford buying an apartment. So they didn't get really enough subsidies, those who were in need. On the contrary, the subsidies went for those who were not in need. So, and then I said we have to choose, the central bank has to choose whether to subsidize real estate or to subsidize the Lebanese pound, because he cannot subsidize both of them. And I said that in 2017, that in 2020, the whole economy will collapse if we're not gonna do anything about it. And I started saying something at the beginning of 2019, but before telling you what I called people to do, I'm gonna tell you why I said in 2020, the whole economy will collapse. I'm not a fortune teller and I don't have a magic wand, but I studied what's the relationship between price of oil and the Lebanese economy. So it was obvious that there is a huge, let's say, correlation, although correlation doesn't mean that there is causality, but I've did enough studies and enough modeling in order to know what's the relation between oil prices and the Lebanese economy. Unlike what people think, that whenever we fill our tank, so we're gonna be very happy and thrilled whenever the price of oil will be cheap. So the situation was not like that at all. So when the price of oil was high, it was very positive for the Lebanese economy, and vice versa. Why? Because the vast majority of Lebanese that generate plenty of money are expatriates, and mainly they live in the Gulf and in Africa, in Angola and Nigeria. And you have other people that they live in Europe or they live in Africa and they use something called the CFA. It was a currency that was replaced recently, and it was directly correlated with the price of euro. And normally whenever the price of oil is high, the price of euro is high. It used to be like that. So that was a direct relation between the price of oil and the situation of Lebanese and the situation of Gulf people, because the demand for real estate in Lebanon was divided mainly into three parts. 1/3 was local, 1/3 was because of the expatriates, and 1/3 it was because of the people in the Gulf. So whenever the price of oil was very high, we used to get lots of FDIs, lots of remittances, and lots of non-resident deposits coming from these countries. But mainly that there was a time lag, 20 months. So it means whenever the price of oil is going to increase, after 20 months, we're going to feel the impact, and vice versa. Whenever the price of oil is going to crash and collapse, we're not going to feel it immediately. There is a time lag, and it is 20 months. So in 2014, there was a collapse at the end of the year, but the average price was still 97. So the direct impact of 2014, okay, of the average of 2014 was 97, won't be felt before October 2016, so no problem. And the average 97, it was high. There was no problem. The problem the very next year in 2015, the average was 54.5, and figures below 80 at that time, it was alarming. So the impact of 54.5 was to be felt in October 2017. And the average as well of 2016 was to be felt in October 2018. And those who are specialized in economics, they know in order to say that we are in a recession, that we need at least 2 quarters. And some people, they say we need 3 quarters. And the average of 2017, when I published the article of 2017, it was toward the September 2017. I said that the average until today is still 53. And it ended up the year, the average 54.5. So the 54.5 to be felt starting October 2019. And why I said the collapse is going to be in 2020, because starting October 2019, we'll enter the 3rd year of low oil prices, and we cannot last more than that. That's why we've seen deficit in the balance of payment, we've seen the financial engineering starting and all that, because actually the price of oil was very low. We were not getting any more remittances. Actually, we were still getting remittances, but in terms of remittances to the size of the economy, in terms of the GDP, we were in around 10 years, we were 24% remittances to GDP. We went to 13%. So the level of remittances, taken into consideration the size of the GDP, they were not enough anymore. And we were not getting any more FDIs, any more non-resident deposits, considerable ones. And all these factors led to the collapse of the economy. So the collapse of the economy is not to be blamed the corona. Luckily, we collapsed ahead, let's say time ahead, and the collapse it was ahead of time of the corona, because we started feeling the collapse in let's say August 2019, September 2019, and it was long time before the revolution, or what they used to call the revolution. So if we wanted to blame someone, it was actually not the revolution, because the revolution, it was the result of the bad situation. So I don't know, whatever you want to call it, God's will, you want to call it karma, you want to call it the universe, you want to call it the luck of the Lebanese, or actually the good intention of the Lebanese. But what I can tell you, that the collapse took place before the revolution, and the collapse took place before corona. Otherwise, they would have blamed corona, and they would have blamed COVID-19, and they would have blamed everybody, but not people in charge of this collapse. So luckily, the collapse took place long time before corona or COVID-19 came to Lebanon. So now, what's the situation? So we know that we were heading toward a certain collapse, and Lebanese were called starting 2019 until September 2019. So I called them 9 times, whether in interviews on TV that I published on social media platforms, or whether in articles that I called, first of all, the people, and I called the government. The government, so I was not expecting them to answer my calls, but I called them to do capital control. And this was beginning of 2019. And I didn't invent anything. So I took the as a role model or as a benchmark, Malaysia in 1997 during the Asian crisis. So Mahathir Mohamad at the time, he did a capital control, and he didn't seek the assistance of the IMF. Other countries in the neighborhood, they were mocking him, and they thought that he's not going to make it. Actually, the IMF didn't succeed in plenty of, or in several countries there, but Malaysia was able to get out of the financial crisis because of the capital control. People, since the beginning of 2019, I told them not to put all their money in the same basket. Okay, so not because it's a basic in finance, don't put all your eggs in one basket. So I told them, don't keep all your money in Lebanese banks, go and purchase gold, transfer part of your money abroad, put them in several currencies, buy stocks abroad, buy treasury bills abroad. And I named the currencies, namely pounds, yen, euro, and that's it. So, and I told them you can keep part of your money in Lebanese pound, otherwise they might ask me to go to jail if I tell people take all your money outside the country. Already I was accused of the collapse of the real estate economy, and I had to be cautious. So that's why I told them diversify. And starting July 2019, for the first time, I told people you can buy in real estate if you want to hedge against the risk of fluctuation of the Lebanese pound. So I was very cautious how to choose my words in order not to be accused of being behind any collapse. So I told them, just if you want to hedge against any potential non-stability of the Lebanese pound, you can buy real estate. Now, what are the solutions now? Because we are in the middle of the crisis, and actually, to be fair, I called the government actually in November, early November, to increase the insurance on the deposits from 5 million to 100 million, because in the States you have it FDIC, you have something similar in Europe up to 100,000 euros. In the States FDIC, it's up to $250. So I called them to increase it from 5 to 100. Actually, they increased it after 1 month from 5 million to 75 million. It was useful before the collapse of the Lebanese pound. And early April, 1st of April, so I put on my page that 3,200, when the Lebanese pound was trading 2,750, 2,800. And when I was interviewed, people thought it's April Fool Day, or they thought I'm doing a forecasting. And I told them, actually, I'm not doing any forecasting. They told me, why you put 3,200 and now it is 2,750, 2,800? I said, I know people that bought today for 3,200 $1 because actually they needed larger quantities, and that's why they were ready to pay extra money in order to get these funds. And when I was asked, or when they asked me where the Lebanese pound is heading, I said there is no ceiling. And I always call people since the very beginning to always diversify their portfolio and to keep actually part of their money outside the country, to keep it part of it in gold, part of it in real estate. So to hedge against the risk of fluctuation of the Lebanese pound. Now we are here, what to do? So the government said that the currency is now cheaper, so we're going to witness a boost in manufacturing industry. And that's why I said, and they said as well, that the tourism industry is going to be, let's say, is going to save Lebanon from this crash and from this, let's say, liquidity crash in terms of dollars. So there is something in economics called the Jcurve. I don't know if we can see it, Sarkis. So I sent you 2 links. This one is paid. I sent you one link is for free for the leading by misleading in the hummus economy. Anyhow, consider that you have a J. So this one is paid. You have to, I sent you the link, the free one. Anyhow, if you take the letter J, there is something called the Jcurve. So in the Jcurve is going to tell you that whenever the currency is going to depreciate, you're not going to see your exports boosting all of a sudden, and you're not going to see as well tourists flooding to your country all of a sudden. But the Jcurve mainly, it is for exports. Whenever your currency is going to depreciate, first of all, on the contrary, you're going to see that the deficit is going to be worse. Okay? It's not going to be better because you cannot export all of a sudden. Why? Because consider that you have a good that is important and it has no domestic producer in Lebanon. So in case the demand is inelastic, and we know that for the vast majority of goods in Lebanon, we don't have actually a substitute. So even for food, we import 80% of what we eat. So for cars, for medicine, for plenty of things, that for gasoline, for all of that, we're gonna for wheat and for everything, we import everything. So since the demand or price is inelastic for the vast majority of these goods, so you're going to see that the trade balance is going to worsen for the very short period. Okay, I'm gonna send you the picture, Sarkis, because I'm seeing that you are trying to get it.
Yes, it's not working.
Yeah, I'm gonna send you the picture of the Jcurve. Okay, so first of all, you're going to see that the trade balance is going to worsen. First of all, you have to bear in mind that for the time being, we cannot export very much because the vast majority of other countries, their economy is not doing very well, no? So during the pandemic, so you know that plenty of countries are not working in their full potential. So
actually, all the countries weren't working.
Okay, so why they want to import all of a sudden from Lebanon? Second, we don't have the required raw material to produce, because you have plenty of production in Lebanon. We need raw material, and in order to import this raw material, we need dollars. So we don't have enough dollars to import, and producers, they have a big problem in order to import goods. So don't think, and for the tourism industry, since the prices, even if prices became cheaper, take the hummus as a plate. So in case it used to cost $5, it was 7,500. Even if you double the price nowadays, and it's gonna be 15,000. So 15,000 is gonna be $1.5 if you take the current exchange rate around 10,000. So it means they have to work 3 times more in order to get the same dollars as before. So first of all, we cannot host 3 times tourists as we used to have, because our infrastructure is really in very bad situation. And this is on one hand. On the other hand, we know that for the tourism industry, the peak is in July and in August. So we're almost mid-July and Corona is still here. So we're gonna be, and the internal tourism is not going to be enough, okay? Even if you're gonna see plenty of tourists here and there or whatever in very concentrated areas. So this is for the tourism industry and exports. It's gonna be a long time in order to get a, let's say, a tangible impact, a tangible positive impact. If we're going to talk about the latest article about create value or lose your value, we've seen people calling the Lebanese to go and grow plenty of wheat and to actually concentrate on agriculture and manufacturing. We should bear in mind something, that agriculture, first of all, and the industry, manufacturing, it's gonna need plenty of time in order to be competitive and in order to be able to export. Not to say that we need plenty of inflows from outside. If you want to have a competitive agriculture, and you need equipment, you need seeds, you need pesticides, you need plenty of things that it needs plenty of inflows. So it's not gonna be the solution in agriculture, nor in manufacturing. So it needs plenty of time and to be rewarding. The only possible thing that as Rethinking Lebanon we call to do since 2017 is to ask expatriates to send us jobs that can be performed remotely from Lebanon and send them back via the internet. So these jobs through knowledge economy, we need it more than before nowadays. First of all, everything related to knowledge economy, the investment is not huge. So we don't need plenty of investment. And expatriates and even people abroad, they can send plenty of jobs to Lebanese. This way you're going to get fresh money. Second, the labor force is cheaper in Lebanon and it's still very competitive and very high quality. So this way you're going to get plenty of inflows, plenty of dollars, you're going to employ youth, and you don't need plenty of investments. So the key nowadays is in knowledge economy, okay? So this is my call for people. Even if electricity doesn't come very often, even if you have problems in the internet, but you have to take into consideration for agriculture and for manufacturing, you need electricity as well. So the thing that, of course, we have to fix electricity, but we need to have faster internet. But despite this, the electricity and the internet and the labor force is still in Lebanese pound, and it is cheaper. And I know that companies in Lebanon are starting to formulate a business continuity plan to mitigate surging operational risks. So the plan includes data backups, high availability of infrastructure and services, and disaster recovery sites. This is on one hand. On the other hand, I call the Lebanese government to remove the corporate taxes now, because after all, what they're collecting is nothing, especially after the depreciation of the Lebanese pound, and plenty of companies, they laid off their employees. So not only they laid off their employees, they went bankrupt. So in case you're gonna operate in a zero tax environment, you might attract more inflows, you might attract more capital. And after all, in case we're gonna be a tax haven country for a very short period of time, it's not gonna be harmful. And we're gonna improve in the ease of doing business whenever we're going to see what's our ranking in the ease of doing business published by the World Bank. So having ease of doing business very bad, yes.
If I may interrupt, there's a question from Daniel Ganyan.
Yes.
He's saying that why would the IMF help Lebanon when Lebanon is not capable of solving the electricity problem, let alone the telecom infrastructures and smuggling our resources and goods via illegal borders.
Okay, first
or
of
even
all,
the legal borders.
First of all, I tell him Harkan Kneris. Second of all, I'm gonna tell him nobody said that IMF is going to help us unless we're going to fix electricity and fix smuggling. That's why they're not giving us any money. Having said that, the IMF, the maximum the IMF is willing to give us is the quota. And the quota is around $800 million. And we're not gonna get this before 1 year. So I said that 3 months ago. Maybe we still have 8 or 9 months, okay? Having said that, the maximum we're going to get is the quota, which is $800 million. In case we're gonna behave well after that, they're going to do a quarterly review. And in case we're doing fine, they're going to give us something called extended fund facility. And the extended fund facility is 4.3 times the quota. So the maximum that we're going to get from the IMF, including the quota, is going to be 800 times 4.3. So the maximum we're going to get is a $3.4 billion. $3.4 billion, and not 20 as they are claiming, or 10. So the $10 billion that Argentina got, and Dr. Carlos know more than anyone else because he's an Argentinian. Okay, mucho gusto, Dr. Carlos. Okay, benvenido. Thank you for being with us. So to get the $10 billion, you need, in this case, something that we call a special fund. We call it flexible credit facility. The flexible credit facility, to get it, we must be a good country operating in a very good conditions. We don't have as much corruption. We don't have as much wastefulness. And because of a force majeure event like a collapse of oil prices, so we might ask for such a facility because we have a huge deficit in the balance of payment coming from an unforeseen event, not because of mismanagement and because of corruption, like the case in Lebanon. Okay? So this is...
I have one more question. By behaving well, like, what do you mean? Do you mean by the government doing acts, or like acting upon what they are saying?
Yeah, they should first of all fix the problem of electricity, fix corruption. They should fix the smuggling, fix all that.
Don't you mean I think like the IMF is trying to concentrate the worldwide, internationally known. I don't think it's international, not yet, but most countries do deem the group, the Hezbollah, is like is one of the reasons that Lebanon is facing such crisis.
No, for me, you should get rid of the whole political class that you have now. Come up with a new independent people from the youth, young ladies, young gentlemen like you. Okay, so you're going to have them independent. So they should give trust to the locals, to the expatriates, and to the international community. Because in case you're gonna take the current political class, so I've seen that plenty of Lebanese, they are calling the international community not to give them any penny because they're gonna steal it. So they called, so if the international community wants to help Lebanon, let the international community help Lebanon in getting rid of this political class. So the current political class, we don't trust it inside Lebanon. So how are they going to trust it outside Lebanon? And the expatriates, they don't trust them anymore, especially that they confiscated their money in the banking sector. So we don't trust not just the political class, people that they were in charge of the economy in Lebanon, whether monetary or fiscal. So we don't trust the whole regime. Okay, and whenever I say political class, those who were in power and those who think that now they are in the opposition, but they were in power. So all of them, they are responsible. So I just want to tell you, muy orgulloso de Middle East. Muchas gracias, Dean Carlos and everybody.
Thank you,
And
Mr.
I'm
Jihad.
done for today.
Thank you so much. We have lots of questions actually for you, but
Yes.
we will leave them until the end of our discussion with Mr. Walid. Walid, you are next.
Thank you for all
Good to hear you again.
This beautiful information that you shared about Lebanon. I think there is not so much to share with you after all what you said. So I will share with you a lot of information regarding Qatar and regarding this COVID-19 situation now and how SMEs should overcome this situation. Okay, go ahead, Joel. You were asking me something.
Yes, I was saying that you are next. So yes, we will be happy to listen more about what's happening in Qatar and the Gulf region. So please go ahead.
So as you know, we at Pfc International, we are a management consultancy firms. We have branches in Sydney, in Qatar, and in Beirut. Nowadays we are helping SMEs to do feasibility studies and business development plan and to open to foreign markets. So basically, we are so much concerned with what's happening in Lebanon. We are working closely with USAID to help a lot of SMEs expanding their businesses to the Gulf and to the GCC. And at the same time, we are seeing how the government here in the GCC countries are helping small and medium enterprises, where in our homeland in Lebanon, no one is giving that help to the SME, and this is affecting our economy on the macroeconomic and the microeconomic level. So you see a lot of companies shutting down, closing, sending their employees home. What I would like to say that now, you know, it's international crisis. Whatever is happening now in Beirut or all across the globe is an international crisis, and every government should help and support the private sector to overcome this situation. In Beirut, unfortunately, we have a lot of power. We have a lot of brains that we don't know how to use them, how to benefit from them, helping our economy and helping our infrastructure and agriculture and industrial sectors to grow and to expand. And I have not so much to add from what Mr. Jihad said regarding the political situation and the ecosystem now in Beirut. What I would like here to mention is that we as a company and let's say we as a company and as a family, we are open to help any small company in Beirut that would like to expand to the Gulf or to come here to, you know, to find them markets and to link them with Qatari or Kuwaiti or Omani or Bahraini partners that would like to host them and to open their businesses here. Basically, this is what I would like to talk about. I don't know if you have any question or anything that you like.
This is unfortunate when we invite people to leave, but I definitely understand how everyone is longing to leave nowadays anyways.
That's
so it's so sad. After what Jihad talked and after what you said, it's a little bit disappointing. So I think many might leave the discussion right now just because they're...
No. I just want to tell you that I am optimistic.
I know you're telling a real story, you know. So...
No. I am optimistic in my pessimism, but
yeah,
2020 is gonna be hard. Okay.
You cannot imagine how many company and how many person are calling us each day on a daily basis. Just they are asking us, how can we go out of Lebanon?
I can imagine.
Maybe in order to diversify, doesn't mean they want to leave for good.
There
are plenty of opportunities now in Lebanon, and I told you, you have very cheap labor force, very cheap electricity, operational cost. You have opportunities as well.
Even Mr. Jihad, I wanted to ask you.
I don't agree with your approach because maybe you are right somehow, but also on the other hand, there are a lot of companies that they are not profitable anymore. They cannot afford.
But you can outsource plenty. You can outsource plenty of services, plenty of things. You can outsource it, and they can be done in Lebanon. It's gonna be mutual benefit. So between expatriates, Lebanese here, and corporations abroad.
Okay, regarding the services, this can be feasible, but regarding other industries like agriculture or industrial or other services, this is never feasible. Because
it needs time. It needs time, because whenever you become cheaper, I said about the Jcurve, so it needs time before it's gonna improve.
Maybe, but
because they're gonna be cheaper whenever you want to export, but you need the raw material, and you need let's say the appropriate ecosystem.
That's it. Which we don't have right now, and which we don't expect having it in the next 1 or 2 years if we don't change the current political situation. Politicians who are
according to actually Mr. Nasrawi, he's the vice chairman of manufacturers in Lebanon. He thinks that it might be promising, especially that I talked actually about a fund that expatriates are trying to launch. So this actually fund, it is up to 750 million, and this platform is gonna aim at securing 700 million to allow the provision of raw material of Lebanese manufacturers. So they are trying to have this international platform. They're going to develop it, and they are Lebanese industrials are joining forces with expatriates in order to have this platform. So $700 million.
In our trade balance today, Lebanon is importing $14 billion and we are only exporting $3 billion
okay, I'll tell you something. For the balance of payment, we have to distinguish between two things. You have balance of payment of goods and balance of payment of services. In services, we are generating a surplus.
Correct.
It used to be 3, now it is 1.5. For the products, and items, now it really decreased. It really decreased because you have a very heavy capital control. And the capital control, I know it's illegal, but it is de facto, and it is here. Due to this capital control, I guess the balance of payment is going to decrease. The deficit in the balance of payment is going to decrease, but the problem is not here. Maybe we're going to get debt to GDP very good. It's going to decrease, but the problem is not here. That Japan has one of the biggest debt to GDP ratios in the world. The problem that there is no trust in the Lebanese economy, and expatriates, they don't actually trust the banking sector anymore, and they're not ready to send money to Lebanon anymore. This is the real problem. The problem in the trust, and we need years to rebuild. And this is in my opinion.
I agree. I agree with that point. But what I don't agree with you is that now I don't see a light at the end of the tunnel on the short term in Beirut, because
I didn't say there is light. It cannot be that I forecasted the crash of 2020 and you want me in the 2020 to be optimistic. 2020, I'm not optimistic.
He didn't ask for
I
this.
am optimistic in my pessimism for the future.
Walid, I have a question for you from Joris Allah. He says, will the removal of the blockade in the Gulf region help us as Lebanese youth, and to what extent?
What I'm afraid of is another blockade on the Lebanese, because now, to be very honest, the Lebanese manpower now became cheap. Now, as an example, I have a company, in my company, I used to get an auditor from Beirut with a salary, with an average salary in Qatar of $5,000 to $6,000 Trust me, today I can get one from Beirut in $1,000 and in $800 in Qatar. And I know what I'm saying. We are receiving CVs, and we are asking about their current salaries and their expected salaries. This is so sad. What I am sad of is that the cost of the Lebanese out of Lebanon is becoming low. Now you can see fresh graduate that would like to work with any salary you give them, and this is very sad. I remember very well when I went out of Lebanon, I couldn't accept a certain number or a certain salary or a certain income. Now you see that Lebanese, they can accept any value, and this is very sad. And this is the sad reality of Lebanon. And what I'm afraid of, that they will ban the Lebanese from entering some GCC countries, because we can see this. We can see that now a lot of Lebanese were stuck in Dubai or in Qatar, and they couldn't even afford the ticket to get back home. And I don't know how it's going to end and how this is going to be solved somehow.
Thank you, Walid. There are lots of questions to both of you. But I have a brief question to ask to Jihad. Jihad, what do you think? We didn't talk a lot about the banking system in Lebanon. Can banks do something? Do you think with the people? I'm talking with the people, okay? Because the people are really frustrated that they are drowning in debt, okay? And do you think that forgiveness would? Yeah, no. Anyone, myself, you maybe, I don't know, you know?
What to do with the money? What to do with the money in the bank?
Not only what to do with the money in the bank, what to do with the debt that is on the people owed to the bank. Do you think debt forgiveness would help? Or will it make things worse?
But I'm afraid that certain banks, they are like zombie banks. So they don't give you your money, the money they owe you. But on the other hand, they are here to collect the loans. But you should not undermine something that they are obliged to get the loans that they gave you or they granted for plenty of Lebanese. They're obliged to get them in Lebanese pound. And for plenty of people, it was in their advantage. Correct. I know plenty of people that sold something, a certain asset, and they decided to pay back the whole loan.
I believe they stopped it now because they realized.
No, they didn't stop. They didn't stop. You pay just a penalty for 5% or something. But plenty of Lebanese, they took advantage of this. They used to have certain loans, and they were able to pay it back in Lebanese pound. And until today, those who were paying, you don't have to undermine something. You have plenty of Lebanese that they still get fresh dollars on one hand. So it played in their advantage. Others, they have their cousins abroad. So now if they send a very small amount of money, you know that Lebanese families are diversified like portfolios.
Yes.
So in every Lebanese family, you have one expat. So you know that we're good in finance. So we diversified the families in Lebanon.
You talked about diversification. How can we diversify now when our money is stuck at the bank? Khalas, we didn't diversify at the beginning, you know? What can we do now?
I cannot, actually, I was calling Lebanese where I asked them what to do during the crisis, before the crisis, and I kept on telling them, even the point that Mr. Jaja talked about, I said in November, in a certain article for Mr. Rida Sawaya, it was published in Al Akhbar, that I'm very sad that the Lebanese are actually their compensation or their remuneration is going to become cheaper. So I said it in November that this is the real problem. So Lebanese, they know our negotiation power is not strong anymore because they know that we are in a crisis. So our negotiation power is not that strong. So we're accepting anything. Second, there is another issue. Yeah, there is another issue. I know that plenty
in Beirut now, people are seeing it here. If you go and sit with any Qatari or any person from the GCC, unfortunately, whatever is happening in Beirut, inside the banks or on the streets, or they are all watching it. They are all aware of what's happening.
I know.
This is putting us in a very bad situation whenever you want to negotiate about a deal or about anything.
Since November, I knew we're heading there. It's not a surprise. The problem, not the problem, the opportunity, it might be an opportunity, it might be not. I know that plenty of Lebanese, they are getting jobs in the Gulf by staying in Lebanon. Okay, so like it was kind of outsourcing. So they are outsourcing certain services, especially everything related to IT, programming, graphic design, digital marketing.
There is a concern here, Jihad, is the infrastructure again. How long, you know, sometimes we heard about this, you know, I don't know if you were aware of it. We heard that the internet might get cut, or we might face some technical problems regarding connectivities. I'll be very honest with you. This was a major concern for us as a company, as we have branches in Lebanon and out of Lebanon. I started, I'm being, me as an entrepreneur, I started employing some of my, I started employing out of Lebanon. I started my backup plan by redundancy out of Lebanon because of that point, because I'm afraid that one day I might not be able to communicate properly with the team there. I might not be able to deliver. I might not be able to have my disaster recovery plan, out of country disaster recovery plan. So this is also another concern. I agree with your point of view, and it is correct, but also we should take into consideration that businesses and people out of Lebanon are seeing things differently from what you are seeing, from the way you are seeing it inside Lebanon.
Actually, I talked about the disaster plan and the backup plans. I know that even companies in Lebanon are doing recovery sites, and they're having sometimes certain teams outside the country for to mitigate the operational risks. But nevertheless, we are still having actually jobs coming from outside the country. The only problem that they are abusing Lebanese in certain cases, and they are offering them low compensation. But still, it is good, acceptable whenever it is a fresh money.
Okay, but do you know, like in the last 3 months, how many kindergarten, how many printing house? I'm naming businesses because I can recall some of the names and some of our clients who are already shutting down in Beirut and exporting the business as it is, switching it to Qatar, to Australia, to any other country.
I won't be surprised, because if I forecast the crash in 2017, will I be surprised in 2020? I know we were heading in to a collapse of the Lebanese economy. I said collapse of the entire Lebanese economy. And that's why if you go back to, I can share articles with you in 2017 and 2018. In 2018, I said that the price of apartment is going to be 3 for the price of 1. I said 3 for the price of 1 for people that are abroad. Because they always ask me, do you advise people to buy real estate in Lebanon? I said, if you live abroad, your money is abroad, and you get your dollars or your euros abroad, and your savings are abroad, you don't have to buy real estate because they're going to decrease. And whenever I said 3 for the price of 1, I was aware of what's happening. And 4 or 5 months ago, I said I won't be surprised if certain people are going to sell their real estate for food. It's going to happen because certain Lebanese, they might sell their real estate to pay the tuition of their son or their daughter abroad. Because
this is sad. And
we are in a crisis. We are in a mess. I'm not denying that. I'm just telling you what are the pros and cons for being in such a situation. If you have a new political class, I'm sure that you're going to have trust from the international community. And if in case we're going to have multinational banks coming to Lebanon, acquiring the existing banks, so you might get things getting on feet again. And you should not undermine something that you are an economist. The size of our GDP is going to shrink from $57 billion. It's going to go to $30 billion or less. So the size of our economy is going to be very small, which means in the future, if you get acceptable inflows, whenever you regain the trust, so immediately you're going to see, let's say, improvement in our economy because it's going to become very small.
let's be more realistic. We all know that now what's happening in Beirut, it's a 90% political issue, maybe 10% economic and
I don't agree it's a just political, because whenever I forecasted the crash in 2017, it's not just political, because always we want to blame it on political and people, and now we have let's say the countries outside Lebanon, they want to besiege Lebanon or whatever. The problem is political before, because actually we got a certain let's say political class that they wasted our taxes. They are specialized in wastefulness, not just wasting the money and actually not paying attention to what's happened. They spent all our taxes. Actually, for the taxes of Lebanese, they disappeared. The international loans disappeared, and actually deposits disappeared. So the problem goes back to years ago. So we cannot say that just because there is a corona or because actually there is a imminent political thing this year. The problem goes back to several years, and we knew that in case they're going to continue like that, we're going to collapse. Before, what was helping us was external factors. Take, for example, 2008. 2008, we were on the verge of collapse several times in Lebanon. That's why we got Paris 1, Paris 2, Paris 3. They were always helping us. This is on one hand. And every time we got oil prices helping us. Don't forget the 2008 crisis in the States. All of these factors, they helped us before. We got plenty of inflows coming to Lebanon, plenty of things. Now the external factors and economic factors, they were not helping anymore. Like you were spending 10,000, but you were getting at least 8,000. We are still spending 10,000, but now we are getting 2 or 3.
And all of that is because of what? It's because they don't trust our political system. They don't trust now we as Lebanese, we don't trust anymore this system.
Yeah, but the problem now is more because you have a collapse of actually what was the competitive advantage of Lebanon? We used to be the banking of actually the Bank of the Middle East, the University of the Middle East, the Hospital of the Middle East, and even the Hotel of the Middle East. We're no longer the Bank of the Middle East. We're no longer that. We lost that, and I'm afraid we're gonna lose the other 2 sectors, the education sector and everything related to hospitals and actually to the health sector. So I'm afraid that we're going to lose the other 2 competitive sectors. This is the real problem. So we cannot say that the problem is like before. The problem nowadays, the banking sector and the trusts. Who's going to send money to Lebanon nowadays? So even if you're going to do merger and acquisition among banks in Lebanon, it's not going to solve the problem. The problem is a trust issue. That's why I said we need multinational banks coming to Lebanon, acquiring the existing banks. Because don't tell me if there will be HSBC in Lebanon or JP Morgan or Deutsche Bank or any other multinational bank. Between the local or the multinational bank, you're going to choose the multinational. The multinational is going to give you trust. This is my opinion.
Okay. Mr. Jihad, just to wrap it up, I have 2 questions, 2 last questions for
I prefer that you keep the questions for Mr. Jaja.
Okay, for both of you.
Because I took much more time than him.
I know. Okay, so for like both of you, how bad do you think the economy of Lebanon is going to go down? Is the dollar really going to reach like 40,000? Just like I heard about some articles talking about it. Is it going to reach 40,000? Like,
regarding this point, I'm very pessimistic. Okay, if you want to analyze,
how bad is it going to go down?
My own opinion, and maybe Jihad will agree, maybe he won't, but my own opinion is that the dollar is going to get higher and higher, and I can see it reaching the 50,000.
Is it going to reach more than 40?
We don't know, but it is going. The logic and the analysis says that it is going to get harder and harder.
Yes, Jihad said there will be no limit. You know, there's no limit to that. So yes, I agree with you, Walid. Sadly, unfortunately, but we will see how.
But I can see it coming, because I cannot see a solution on the short term. I also agree with Jihad on that. I see it.
Okay, so one last question. This is from Mr. Ihab Muawad. I'm sorry, Mr. Jihad, but he is asking you straightforward. Mr. Jihad, what is your honest outlook for Lebanon, but away from objective analysis, no numbers? In other words, like, what is your subjective opinion looking at the political and economic reality of the country? This is only for you, Mr. Jihad.
For me, I said that for the short run, it's going to be very tough. It's not going to be easy at all. But I hope, as I said, that we're going to replace the current political class, hopefully maybe in 1.5 years. Hopefully.
You know, also now I'm also anxious about not only the money and the deposits of the people in the banks. Now I'm anxious also about their assets. As you know, if some banks went on liquidation or bankrupt, what will happen to the assets of the people that are already put as a deposit in these banks? I don't know if anyone is aware of this. I think it's not easy for a bank to get bankrupt, but we never know. We are seeing miracles in Lebanon these days, and everything is expected these days. Jihad, you are on mute. I think I cannot.
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
So basically, I don't know how this is going to be solved, or I don't know if it's a major concern now. But I'm really afraid about the assets of the people that are already put as a guarantee in the banks, because we don't know what will happen to these assets, because this is the only thing that Lebanese can now use nowadays, because their money is gone, the liquidation is very limited. People have only now assets, and we don't know what is going to happen to these assets, because nowadays most of the plots of the apartments, of the cars, of the businesses, even of some other thing, are all put as a guarantee for the banks, and this is a bit risky now and critical in this situation. And I think no one now has started mentioning this thing in the Lebanese media. I don't know if Jihad has mentioned that before, but I believe also people who can now pay their loans, I give them an advice to pay it as soon as possible. For those who are out of the country and can afford paying their loans, let them do it straight away, because it's better to remove their guarantees the sooner they can. Any other question?
Yes, so you're talking about when people take loans and have collaterals, you know, like I might lose my house if I don't pay the loan. And
no, I'm not saying only that. I'm saying
the house, the banks,
for the bank
bank's
and
assets.
What
Okay.
will happen to your house? You will follow. You go to the courts to you will follow the courts to get your house back, and you won't be dealing with the bank anymore. You will be dealing with the courts, and this is also very risky. And I'm afraid about this point.
I agree with you that you should secure having your collateral. If it is worth more than the loan, of course.
That's it. Everything worth more than the loan nowadays. Especially if your loan is in Lebanese lira, or even if it is in dollar, because you can pay it in Lebanese lira.
Yes,
they might change the rate. Actually, they might, whenever you have a new rate, so you have to pay according to the new rate. Mm-hmm. If the official rate is going to become, for instance, I'm giving an example, 3,850. So you'll have to pay 3,850 in case your loan is in dollars.
So most banks now are giving grace period, like until the first month of 2021.
Depends.
So yeah,
it's not a grace period. They're obliged to pay.
No, they're just extending your loan, you know, and with zero interest and all of this. But those who have loans in dollars, you're saying they're better off closing them now than wait.
They have to do their own assessment. They have to,
yes,
to do and check whether the assets or the collateral that is put in as a guarantee now worth more or less than the actual value of the loan itself.
Yes.
Jihad, you mentioned that the strongest sectors in Lebanon were banking, education, healthcare, and hospitality. One of the attendees is asking about the education sector. To what extent is the education sector in peril?
To what extent the education sector is?
In peril.
Will go bad.
Okay, I'll tell you something. Until now, the education sector is very well and very solid in Lebanon. We are afraid that we're going to lose the best professors because actually the tuition might be attractive for people living abroad because value to price, they're going to get the best education in the world when it comes to value to price. But we're afraid that in the long term or in the medium term that the best professors are going to leave because the compensation of these professors might not be very attractive. So some very good professors might leave in case the situation is not going to improve.
On school level, I heard that France already started to help with the schools, and pay.
France is helping what we call collège homologué. So
yes,
it means
just the schools that are,
like they are accredited by the French.
Yes.
We call it Créteil. In Créteil, it means like higher education in France. Okay, they are based there. So
but if France started, maybe there's hope that others will follow.
Yeah, in case the tuition is going to be cheap, so it's a advantage for plenty of people that want to study in Lebanon, especially in case we're gonna be in blended learning and maybe we're gonna stay in online studying, so they can stay abroad.
Pay a very
he
cheap
didn't like
tuition.
it. Dr. Carlos didn't like it.
Pay a very cheap tuition and just
very cheap tuition for them. And they're gonna get very high quality education. And for those who don't know, I'm not promoting Middle East, but Middle East goes back to 1939, one of the oldest universities in Lebanon and one of the best ones. Okay, but the issue that lots of people, they don't know about Middle East University, but doesn't mean that it's not one of the best universities in Lebanon and the Middle East. So not just because of the quality of professors and very good administration, but that they have very strong, the alumni is very strong, and they are part of an international network, the Adventists. And for those who don't know, they have one of the network universities in the States. They are one of the best medical schools in the world. So the network of the Middle East makes of it one of the best universities in the world. And you have, in general, plenty of nationalities on campus. So you have, in general, around 30 different nationalities. So you have plenty of exposure and plenty of interaction among various nationalities. So this going to make the Middle East, above of having a very beautiful campus, you're going to get an enriching education. And this is one of the examples of how solid and rich is the education system in Lebanon.
Thank you,
so
Jihad.
Not to name others.
Thank you, Jihad, for your generous report about the
this is the truth, because I organized several conferences at Middle East University, and I chose the Middle East University not only because of the location and the beautiful campus.
Because we diversify.
Because of the name of Middle East. 1939 is one of the oldest, and it was kind of trust for plenty of let's say, people in the fields, so people in the academia, they respect a lot Middle East University, and the location is ideal in the heart of Beirut, and it's not very well in the center, so you have plenty of greenery, so very beautiful atmosphere, and of course you have very good quality of education. So this is an example of how solid is education in Lebanon, and you've seen that the quality of Lebanese abroad, how they are skillful, how they are let's say they are in general polite, they have lots of grit, and as well they have lots of ambition, and I guess lots of people that were interested in employing Lebanese abroad, of course.
Thank you, Jihad. Actually,
this will not change. We hope this will not change.
Hope so.
Yeah, actually, Mr. Walid is one of our alumnus, and I wanted to throw the ball back to him so he can speak a little bit more about Qatar.
Actually,
what's going on?
About Qatar regarding what exactly?
About the situation and advice for businesses in Qatar and in the region.
The sad thing here is that the government here, what they are doing for the private sector and for the corporate sector, our government in Lebanon is not doing it there. Like as an example, here you have now the national COVID-19 program. It's a 3 to 6 months corporate loan that the government gives to every SMEs to help them paying their rent and their salaries to overcome the situation, this COVID-19 situation. We as a firm, we are helping all our customers, you know, to get that grant. In Lebanon, there is nothing like that. On the other hand, here you can see that you know, the government and the Ministry of Economy and Trade issued several announcements where you know, they said that landowners and apartment and store owners, they should stop taking rent until the COVID-19 will end. They also took other measurements like canceling some of the governmental fees that companies should pay, some of the electricity or water cost in some businesses. I can see it, and it's very tangible. I can see that the government here is helping, you know, the private sectors and both individuals and corporates. Moreover, I can give you another example that now they stopped accepting any external or foreign workers, just to make sure that all the unemployed in the country will get jobs here. And this is something I consider it very efficient, because now they will. I can see that the unemployment rate is getting reduced, because a lot of unemployed people are finding jobs here, because you cannot now, I cannot bring a new employee from Lebanon and hire him in my company, because they cannot give me an approval on it, because they are forcing me to get someone from the country, and it's a smart decision. I hope that in Lebanon they can do something like that by, you know, regarding the Syrian and the other nationalities that are working in Beirut. I doubt, but I hope they can do something like that. Regarding regarding each sector here in Doha, I can see it that the touristic sector and the retail sector are highly affected, while the internet and the ICT sectors are not affected a lot. I would like to take the chance here to, you know, to ask any company owner in Beirut or any SME owner, if he or she or they need any help from or any guidance, they can contact us at any time. Our company contact info are public, and they can reach out to us to help them, you know, open to the GCC market or to any other market in Australia or Cyprus or here.
Thank you, Walid, for your reply. I just have one last question to Jihad, and I hope this will be the last one, unless we saw anything on Facebook popping up. So Jihad, back to the issue of the dollars. You mentioned that you do not expect the dollar to have any limits, you know. So but you still see it appreciating. And what about those people? So don't you think that now, because we are talking, and in the media you talk and others talk about this, that people will just sit on their dollars right now and just wait, even though the dollars is going down? A couple of days ago until today, it's going down, you know, the Lebanese, sorry, $2. So don't you think that the media also helps people to just sit down on the dollars? And what would that do in the future? You know, what do you expect?
My job was to protect these people, because I know that since 2019, I told them what to do during the crisis. As let's say, as an economist or an expert in this area, my job is to protect common people from being entrapped. And after all, I call them to do kind of hedging or to cover themselves against potential risks. After all their revenues are going to be in Lebanese pound here in Lebanon. And it's a kind of hedging against any possible fluctuation and merger depreciation and further depreciation or major depreciation of the Lebanese pound in the future. What we saw lately, I don't know to what extent it was tangible, because I don't know if people were able to purchase dollars at 6,000. I don't know what was the amount or the available amount that people were able to purchase at these prices. This is on one hand. On the other hand, you have to take into consideration that after 2 or 3 days, we've seen that the dollar is appreciating again against the Lebanese pound. So that's why I told people not to sell their dollars, not to sell their gold, because this is the only guarantee or the only insurance to cover themselves against any potential depreciation in the future. Because not only individuals, but also corporations, the vast majority of their revenues are in Lebanese pound. So that's why they were supposed to, and I even called people if they can purchase dollars when it was 6,500, so they can start buying progressively. Because this is a way how to diversify, not just I'm calling them, or that's why I never said where is going to reach. And whenever they told me about the report saying that it's going to reach 46,000 or whatever, I told them this is not serious, because we cannot predict where it's going to reach. So I said it on April 1, and I'm repeating it. We don't have any ceiling for the Lebanese pound. We don't know where it's going to reach. So nobody knows after all. So because actually the management of the crisis, it was worse than the crisis itself. So even in November, in a certain TV show, I said that they should, in case they want to do capital control, they have to do it on Lebanese pound more than they should do it on the dollars, because in case you're gonna keep it open for Lebanese pound, you can withdraw as much as you want. So you're going to take 800 million Lebanese pound and you're going to go and purchase dollars with it. Whenever the dollar, it was 1,600 or 1,700. We're talking even until November, even until not November, even until February, the dollar was around 2,000, 2,300. So the problem that they decided, this political class, so they decided to do a populist decision, and they defaulted on the euro bonds. For me, it was a huge mistake, because it was a hard default on one hand, and I warned them, in case you're gonna default, it's gonna be a huge mistake, because the assets of the banks is going to shrink. So the assets are going to shrink, and in this case, whenever you're going to see a collapse in the assets of the banks, so they won't be able to pay you back your deposits. But they decided to do a populist decision, although I told them not only the assets are going to collapse and they're going to shrink, but the Lebanese pound is going to devaluate further and further. It was a huge mistake, and it was a populist decision. Whenever you're going, whenever you are in the intensive care unit or you are in the emergency room, the doctor is going to decide if you have to sit for an operation and what kind of operation. You're not going to ask and do a survey over the internet and ask people what kind of operation or what kind of medicine we should give to the patient. In worst case scenario, you might ask other doctors what to do, but you're not going to ask people if we have to pay the euro bonds or we have to default. What they did, it was a populist decision, and they said we're going to keep the reserves, the foreign reserves, in order to finance medicine, gasoline, and as well wheat. But unfortunately, recently, instead of paying the dues and not defaulting, they were injecting this money in actually what we call in cambio houses, okay, or exchange houses. Instead of injecting this money in the banking sector, unfortunately, they injected this money in exchange houses, and it was actually a erroneous decision, unfortunately. So the management of the crisis, it was worse than the crisis itself.
Indeed.
I have a question to, yes, I have a question to Mr. Walid. Mr. Walid, I have a question from Joris Allah.
Okay.
He's saying, on behalf of high school students, current high school students,
Yes.
in case of the total economic depression or even war, what can we do, or what would be a smooth transition for them, for the high school students?
Actually, the question should be addressed to the authorities, not to us. But unfortunately, we don't have efficient educational authorities in Beirut. What I would like to give him an advice, like, now e-learning nowadays is accessible to anyone, irrespective of the country and of the educational system. What people should do now in Beirut is just to follow up what the ministry would apply in terms of e-learning. I'm not so much aware of the e-learning systems that the government is applying now in Beirut, or is giving, or which e-learning system are giving them regulation or application into the schools and the universities. But let them follow this, and maybe they can be enrolled in some international schools and continue their education.
Thank you, Walid. This was not, anyways, we a little bit diverted from the main subject of the webinar. Dr. Carlos, do you still have anything to add?
No, I wanted to add that we are planning another webinar on the effects of the pandemic on the education sector for the month of August. So we will talk in more details about this last question from this attendee in that upcoming webinar. Is there anything else, Walid or Jihad, that you want to add as a final word of advice for the attendees?
Yeah, I would like to say that maybe the new norm is going to be the emergency situation. So the new norm is maybe we're going to have digitization for a longer period, and we should be prepared for having this a new norm. We might go to blended learning in Lebanon. So it's not going to be maybe the traditional way only. So we have to accommodate with this, and we should be fast in adapting to the new situation. So that's why we've seen lately, if you take the international stock market, that NASDAQ not only recovered, but if you take the year to date, so it improved a lot. This is a signal that everything related to technology, it was flourishing during the time of crisis. So actually the crisis, it was an opportunity for plenty of businesses in several areas. So you should adapt and change your business model immediately, whether in education, in manufacturing, in technology, and everything. So not all, let's say, businesses related to ICT flourished, but the vast majority of them, and they did very well. So now you should adapt your business model. So the new norm, it might be what we used to think that it was actually the disaster or recovery plan or whatever. Thank you again for Walid for his insights from Qatar. And I would like to ask him one thing. So yes. What's your advice as an entrepreneur and someone that graduated from a Middle East university? So what's your recommendation for the Lebanese that are here, they are still in Lebanon? So whether they are students or they are professionals. So what's your advice? You think that Qatar is a promising place, a place to consider?
Okay. I have actually, this is my advice for each of the entrepreneurs, and I would like to repeat it one more time. We are always ready to help in whatever way we can to open doors here, to link companies together. I'll give you some of the examples. Like, we know a lot of companies and businesses in Beirut that they are almost shutting down. We found them some alternatives here. Some people or companies that are doing the same, and we link them together. Actually, I advise every Lebanese company to start opening a door out of Lebanon, at least to keep the inflow, like to keep some money coming from out of Lebanon to Lebanon, and to retain their employees and their activities, especially those who are working in services, like, as you said, in IT or education or business consultancy, like we do. This is the only way that we can keep those families receiving their salaries and their money, is by opening other market and bringing fresh dollar to Beirut again. And Qatar and other GCC countries are, the only way now to do that. Okay.
Thank you. So I have to thank Middle East University again, and Walid, thank you for being with us and for sharing your time and your experience.
Thank you.
And I know that you are MEU graduate, so you're a sample of the success of MEU. Thank you, Sarkis. Thank you, my colleague Joel, because I lecture sometimes in universities, and Joel is a colleague. Thank you, Dean Carlos. Thank you, Dean Carlos, for hosting us, and thank you for Middle East University, and hope to meet physically very soon, all of us.
Inshallah.
And thank you for all the participants, for sure.
Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Jihad. Thank you, Walid, for giving us this wonderful presentation and your willingness to answer kindly all these questions from our attendees. Thank you, Joel and Sarkis, for helping us to co-host this event. And also, I want to end by thanking all the attendees for joining us from different countries. Some people said, several actually, from Lebanon, of course, others from Syria, from Argentina, and from Qatar. Those are the countries that people wrote in the comments here below the webinar. But I also saw names of some other friends I know from the US, from Finland, from England, that were watching the webinar. I want to finish I made a few notes about some of the comments that you shared. I want to mention my three takeaways. Knowledge economy, number one. And this is something for all the young people, all those that are trying to rethink Lebanon, as the initiative from Jihad. Use your brain to make the most out of it, and it will take you through. It will take you through the difficult times. Number two, emergency may be the new norm, and we need to be able and willing to adapt and to innovate as needed. You gave the example, Jihad, of blended learning for educational institutions. This can be extrapolated to any industry, to any small business, to any entrepreneur. And lastly, number 3, keep our doors open. Walid said, keep the doors open for those in Lebanon to do business, to work outside of Lebanon, physically or remotely, as he has suggested. And we need to keep our doors open globally, maybe right now, to fish for opportunities here and there. Actually, I know someone that yesterday had an interview with another person in Sweden trying to get a translation job. And we need to be open to all these opportunities that may be coming to us from different places around the world. I want to finish, as we do always with our events at Middle East University, with a word of prayer to ask God to bless each of the attendees and for God to open ways for each one of us to cope with this difficult situation we are going through and to bless us with his solutions. Let's pray. Dear Father in heaven, thank you for being with us in this webinar. Thank you for bringing Jihad and Walid's knowledge and expertise and sharing it with us. I want to pray also for each attendee who watched, who joined this webinar, that you may bless them abundantly and that you may help each one of us, regardless of where we are located and what is our means of life, to cope with this difficult situation and to be able to go through this storm of this pandemic with your help, with your blessing, and to succeed in everything that we do. We thank you in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you everyone for being with us tonight. Have a good evening and stay tuned for upcoming webinars in the remaining of the summer. You can follow our MEU page and you will be notified what will be the topic for the next webinar. Probably it will be the effects of the pandemic on education, as I saw some questions coming from that sector, and we have good connections to bring good panelists for a webinar like that. Good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Arriba Argentina.
Bye. Bye.
Arriba, Lebanon, Qatar, and everyone.
Lucha, lucha y fuerza.